Welcome, everyone. My name is Karen Grunberg. I'm a professor of Hebrew and comparative literature in the Department of Middle Eastern Studies here at UT Austin, and I'm the associate director for Israel Studies at the Schusterman Center for Jewish Studies. Today's event is part of a regular series in Israel Studies at the Schusterman Center, Tarbut, Hebrew Arts and Culture. The series brings a well-known Israeli author, filmmaker, or other cultural figure to UT annually to present a public lecture, reading, or screening, and to engage more intimately with the UT community through events such as writing workshops or roundtable discussions. The series, which aims to showcase the diversity of Hebrew culture, has included the authors Dorit Rabinyan and Sayed Kashua, the poet Yudit Shachar with her translator Avia Kushner, the filmmaker David Deri, and others. Before we proceed, I'd like to take a moment to thank our co-sponsoring units on campus, the Center for Middle Eastern Studies, the Department of English, and the program in comparative literature. We are grateful for your support. Our speaker today, Tehila Hakimi, is a Jewish Book Council award-winning fiction writer and poet, as well as a mechanical engineer by training. She participated in the 2018 Fulbright International Writing Program Fellowship at the University of Iowa and was awarded the 2015 Bernstein Prize for Literature. Her short prose and poems have been published in translation in various journals, including Asymptote, World Literature Today, and the Poetry Review, among other distinguished venues. She was also awarded Israel's 2019 National Library's Pardes Scholarship for Writers and the 2018 Levi Eshkol Prize for Hebrew Writers. The title of her talk today is Hunting in America, Writing at the Intersection of Gender, Work, and Violence. Though the discussion will focus, I presume, on her most recent novel, Hunting in America, the themes in the title, Gender, Work, and Violence, address issues that have preoccupied Hakimi in her earlier poetry and prose as well. I conclude this brief introduction with a quote from a recent review of Hunting in America in the Times Literary Supplement. It was published on August 15th of this year. And I quote, "Hunting in America wants to be a novel of American gun culture. But the US has always been a surface on which others cast their shadows. What comes into view instead, quietly and unmistakably, is Israel, the country the narrator is fleeing, the country that, quote, smells like a carcass, that put the muscle memory of an M16 into her hands." And that's the end of that quote. It is indeed a novel that has something to say about violence, both in Israel and in the United States. And yet the violence addressed through these particular lenses actually is much broader than this assessment suggests, as we will hear. Please welcome the author, Tehila Hakimi.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, everyone who came, and to the Schusterman Center, and everyone who supported bringing me here. I will talk today about my novel, Hunting in America, but also about my work in general, which you would see soon evolve around work or work culture in general. I'm Tehila Hakimi. I'm an author. I'm a poet. I teach creative writing. I studied mechanical engineering in the university, and I used to have a career in the field. But I could also present myself as a daughter or a mother of two beautiful sons. And also I could present myself as an Israeli, or maybe as a Jewish person. And I can go on and present myself through different lenses, but I think that in our era, we normally present ourselves through the lens of our work, right? Because when we meet someone, we ask them, what's your name? And then the next question will be normally, what do you do for a living, right? So this is also me, only a few years ago, as you can see. But I want to go like a bit back in time and to present some personal histories I was born in Tel Aviv, and where I live right now with my family, with my partner and 2 children. But my parents are both either immigrants or children of immigrants. My mother was born in Morocco, and she immigrated to Israel as a baby. And my father's family came from Iran, and he was born in Israel. So they were both children or themselves immigrants, which in Israel, 50s, 60s, the first 2 decades of a country. And both my parents came from families that they were the first generation to go to school, the first generation to go to university. Both their parents didn't know how to read and write. And in order to become what they were, they had to work really, really hard, right? They had to do very good at school. They had to be exceptional. And I grew up like by that kind of value. You work hard, you get to places. Working hard was a value in our home. And this is why I put also this quote by Donna Summers. She works hard for the money. She gets the respect, right? You better treat her right. And when I finished high school, and I finished army service, I came to my parents and they were like, okay, so what are you going to do next, right? The clock is ticking, what are you going to do next? And I was, okay, I might go study literature and history. And my father was like, what are you going to do with that? You want to be a teacher? What are you going to do with that? And so I went to engineering school, and in engineering school, I knew I would get a job, and so I did. I got a job, and I worked, and I had a 10-year career in engineering. I worked in the car industry, and I worked in the printing industry, and then again in the car industry. And my work took me to places, put me on chairs in front of computers. This is what you do, right? But then I started also writing because it was always like something that I did. Yeah, it was something that I did. Like maybe 15 years ago or 12 years ago, after I started publishing poetry, I went to a poetry reading. I was then still in the engineering field, working in the engineering field. And this young man came up to me in the end of the poetry reading and told me, he said to me, like, I really liked the poem that you read. And he told me, I write poetry too, but I'm also an engineer. And so is it like a hobby for you, the poetry? And I told him, no, it's never a hobby. It's what I do. So I was working, but I was also writing. And then things started to be in contact, to collide. My work, my day job, and my writing. And I saw there that it's something that really interests me, because when I write a poem about the workplace or a story that happens in a workplace, it has lots of tensions inside this place. It has a lot of other subjects that opens up, like power relations, like the feminine body inside the workplace, hierarchies in the culture, the specific culture, and also like cultures that meeting points of culture through work, right? So when I started writing, like all my first books were evolving this subject. My first book was a book of poetry that is titled "We Will Work Tomorrow," and in this book there's like maybe 80 poems, but the the thing that links them or separates between different subjects in the book are poems about work, poems that happens inside a workplace. And then the next book that I published is a graphic novel titled Bamaim, in the Water. It tells the story of a woman, an engineer, that goes on a work trip to China, to Shanghai, and it's a collaboration with artist Liron Cohen. And the next one, my third book, is titled Chevra, which is a multi-meaning word in Hebrew. It stands for a company and also for society. And also I can say that I'm bechevrat anashim. I'm in the company of people. So you can hear from the title that it's also set inside a workplace. All the stories in this book are set in the workspace. And the reason I wrote this book was because I felt that most Israeli contemporary fiction didn't have a heroine or a protagonist that went to work. I felt like I read a novel, it's an excellent novel, I'm very interested of what's going to happen, but I don't know how this person pays his rent, okay? Because I don't know what he does for a living. And that I thought that is odd, so this is why I wrote this complete, like the complete book inside the workplace. Like I made the workplace the main setting for this book. And then this book, Yariti Be'Amerika, Hunting in America, which you can't see really from either the title or the design of the book, that it evolves around the workplace. The image, by the way, is by my twin sister. She's an amazing artist, lives in New York. And you can look her up. Her name is Tehila Hakimi. So, but you can see that from the different covers that my book got in different countries. So this is the British one, the one on the left. You could see this cubicle. Quite a funny interpretation, right? You have those really specific details, and you got this deer head, huge, in the cubicle, right? And then the American version with this a bit thrillery vibe, and the workplace, and also the shredding kind of element, right, from the shredder. And the French version with the office building. Three of them are very different from one another, but also I like each one of them. So Hunting in America, I was again exploring this idea of work. I was also thinking a lot of David Graebe's book, Bullshit Jobs. There he talks about this time we live in, that lots of jobs that people do are going to pass from the world because machines and AI is going to do that instead of them. And so this book tells the story of a woman. This woman, she's an Israeli woman. She's almost 40. She's not married. She doesn't have children. And she doesn't know if she wants to have children. She didn't start planning that yet. And she's very much focused on her job. She's very much career focused. And she gets an offer from the company she lives in she works for, to get a promotion and to move to the US for a new job. And she takes this opportunity. And then she arrives to the US and she starts to go hunting with her colleagues in her trial to be part of whatever she thinks is being part of the workplace or the environment she's now in. And as the story goes on, she really gets into this kind of activity, and along that way, she also starts to feel less and less confident about her job, less and less confident about herself. And before telling you more about this, I will read the first chapter of the book. Just quick. The first time I went shooting in America, I hit a tree. We'd been outdoors for a while, probably a few hours. The first shot hit a tree, but the next one whistled through the leaves. I stopped shooting. The animal fled, and everything went quiet. When I raised my head from the gun sight, I noticed David and the others staring at me, and I was embarrassed. I left them where they stood and approached the tree. I searched for the bullet, but couldn't find it. It must have penetrated the trunk. The scent of the earth was pungent and overpowered by the acrid smell of the gunpowder, which dissipated into the air. I remained by the tree a few more moments. We had left the office early that day. Shortly after lunch, there had been an awkward conference call with Israeli management that morning. The information they offered was unclear, their messages mixed, and the conversation left everyone uneasy. I was catching up on emails when David came into my office and asked if he was interrupting. He told me they decided to finish up for the day. And when I looked at him in confusion, he smiled and said he was going out to the field to shoot with some of the guys. Would you like to join us? When I returned to where the others stood, David patted me on the back. I shuddered, feeling each of his fingers through my sweater. They were spread apart, like in yoga class, when the instructor tells you to extend your fingers and toes like duck feet. David murmured something like, "Way to go," in a somewhat perfectionary tone that nonetheless felt good. I usually didn't like it if someone offered encouragement when I was already doing my best. It had the opposite effect on me. I smiled and said it had been 20 years, maybe more, since I shot a gun. Until that moment, I preferred to put behind me the fact that I had once handled firearms. But suddenly, it came back. It just slipped out. I barely noticed. So this was the first chapter, and when I started writing this book, I was thinking about the idea of her going to America, and then immediately I had this idea of putting a gun in her hands in America, because I felt like doing that. In some way, there's a term in physics, superposition, when you take a power from one field and you then take it to a different field. So I was thinking about something like that, like taking this person that has been trained on this specific instrument, on a gun, because like a lot of Israeli Zionist young people go to the army and they have training, like gun training in the army, and then take her to a different culture, to a different place, to a completely different activity, right? And then to put the gun again in this person's hand. And also, I was very much interested in doing that in a very specific time in her life, because she was almost 40, and in Israel, which is quite conservative in terms of expectation from women to get married, to have children, and this age 40 is some sort of a line that once you pass it, people like your aunts, right? They would like, okay, it's not gonna happen. So I was really interested of taking this person in that specific moment in her life and putting this specific instrument in her hands. And I felt like this collision, this meeting point between her in that time in her life with the gun is interesting, and it really intrigued me. And then people tell me, but why America? Why America, right? So for me, as many other like middle-class Israelis, America is a place, of course, which we speak its language, as you see, okay, which we know its culture, but also for me, as many other Israelis, is like an idea, is like something we look at, and maybe we try to imitate a bit. Maybe it's somewhere we want to go, and we do look at it as in some sort of a success in life to get there. When I was a very young mechanical engineer, I worked as a service engineer, and we were like 8 in the team. Of course, I was the only woman. And then we were traveling a lot. I worked for HP. We were traveling, servicing printing machines, and our boss told us, after a year, if you're good, you would have the chance to get a relocation to America, right? So this was like some sort of the holy grail of work for us. So this is why America, but also I think I knew that America and Israel both have certain understanding of guns and certain cultural approach to guns, right? Because Israelis, like Zionist Israeli, go to the army and they're very much familiar with this instrument. And also in Israel, it's very like normal to see people go around in the streets with guns because a lot of soldiers carry their guns with them. But and then in America, the right to bear arms is in the Constitution. So both cultures have like a different but an approach to guns and to usage of guns, of arms. But also there's this connection, this finance ties between Israel and America that we actually see right now. Everything that's going on, right? Our two leaders are meeting in DC, and they're trying to do something. Yeah, they're trying to solve it or whatever they're trying to do. So there's this also ties between the two cultures, the two countries, that is evolving around war, right? So I felt like all those ideas, subjects, thoughts were very, very, very intriguing, and that all those things might get an angle in my story. But then there's the hunting. This picture I took when I was in Iowa in 2018, when I wrote the book and the first draft, and I went to this huge gun store in the outside of Iowa City, Fins and Feathers. Have you ever been to a gun store? People here? Yeah. And I was quite amazed of everything, because everything in America is also like very big and a variety of varieties, right? And everything that you buy has something to buy for the thing that you buy. It has lots of things like that. But after writing this book, because it's also, like you could hear, in the first person, people asked me if it's about my experiences, if it's about me, this story. And actually it's not, except for one paragraph in the book, which is my actual experience from this gun store in Iowa City. So I will now read a few very short pieces from chapter 12 in the book that tells about this protagonist's visit to the local gun store. So it goes like that. At first glance, the gun shop looked like a regular camping store. On the first floor were different brands of hiking apparel: waterproof jackets, fleeces, hats, scarves, and endless varieties of thermal socks. At the other end of the floor was the shoe department, with long shelves stacked with footwear according to size. The place was so huge. I lost David soon after we entered. I found the gun department on the second floor. There were hundreds of firearms, probably more, maybe even thousands. They were arranged according to size, maybe according to brand too. I surveyed the entire floor, wondering where to begin. In the automatic rifle section, I found a short-barreled M16 that looked similar to the one I'd used in the army. It had a price tag, $700. I took it off the shelf. It was heavier than I remembered. I passed it back and forth between my hands, testing its weight. I pressed the pin located next to the grip with my right thumb. The pin slotted through the other side, and I pulled it out with 2 fingers. The rifle opened and folded. I removed the charging handle together with the bolt carrier and held them in one hand. Everything happened like clockwork. It was like a muscle memory. In one smooth motion, a swift sequence of automatic actions. I returned the parts to the rifle until they clicked back in place. It was only then that I noticed David, holding a shopping basket with contents I couldn't see. He stood a few yards away, watching me. And now I get to the part that was actually based on my experience. So she serviced the store, and then she gets to the service desk. When I got to the service desk, I asked the sales assistant which rifles he recommended for deer hunting. He swung around to the hung display of rifles on the back wall and removed one of them. I held the rifle in my hands for a few moments. It was a bolt-action rifle. I wanted to ask if it was available with magazine, but I couldn't think of the word in English. I got stuck mid-sentence and had to gesticulate with 3 fingers how it went in and out. Do you mean magazine? The magazine? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Like an M16, I had a rifle like that in the army. Thank you for your service, he promptly said, and added that he had automatic rifles too. I told him that I did not serve in the US military, and I wasn't from here. Serving the military is always good, he said. He took another rifle down, said perhaps this would suit me, and placed it on the counter between us. And by the way, in the real scene, the service guy told me that this army is good too, like specifically on the Israeli army. But then when we were editing the book, my editor told me that it sounds not real. So we should change it like for a general kind of reference to any army. But this is how it goes, right? Like real life is always like better than comedy, better than tragedy, better than anything else. So it gets me to like the last kind of subject in my lecture, which refers to translation. You know, being translated is such a gift, and especially being translated by a gifted translator like Joanna Chen, that translated this book. And when I met Joanna before she started working on my book, she told me, Tehila, please read it to me out loud so I can hear your voice and I can hear how it goes in your head, in the Hebrew. And because my book was also translated to French, and also the French translator is one of the best French, like Hebrew French translator, I think, of any time. Her name is Rosie Pinchasi Delfouach, and after she finished translating the book, she told me, you know, there's a word in the very, very first page that is very important for the book. I think this word is like a key to read the whole novel. And I was, wow, which word is it? And she told me it's the word chadalti, which means in Hebrew to stop shooting, but also it means to stop in general, and also it means to no longer exist, from the word chidalon. And after she told me that, I thought she was right, and that I didn't know that until she told me that. And then I went back to the English translation, because we were doing that in parallel, and I was like, we have to change this word in English too. We have to find a word for it in English. But there is no word for it in English, like a single word that can do both. And this is what's so special about the Hebrew, right? Because like a single word or two words can hold like several different meanings, where English is much more elaborative. And it's very hard to find phrases or words that can do the same thing. But what Joanna did do is giving it the very, very specific tone and music and poetics that the Hebrew has. And I want to read it to you so you see, because that way I feel like even though we couldn't find a single word for the multiple meaning of chadalti, she did kept the music of the text, which is not less important. So I will do like a very short kind of read, and I will move from the Hebrew to the English and back so you can hear the pulse. So it goes like that. בפעם הראשונה שיריתי באמריקה פגעתי בעץ. The first time I went shooting in America, I hit a tree. היינו בחוץ כבר כמה זמן, כנראה כמה שעות. We'd been outdoors for a while, probably a few hours. הירייה הראשונה פגעה בעץ, אבל זו שאחריה שרקה בין העלים. The first shot hit a tree, but the next one whistled through the leaves. מיד אחר כך חדלתי, החיה ברחה, ומסביב נפלה דממה. I stopped shooting. The animal fled, and everything went quiet. So I think you could hear through like moving from the Hebrew to the English back and forth, how Joanna managed to keep the pulse, the rhythm of the text. which was in fact very much important for me, because thinking about all the subject that I was like discussing in my head when writing this book, and when I was thinking very much about this protagonist, about who she was, about how her voice should be, and like I was following her on her hunting trips and everything that happened to her in her first year in the US, I was also very much focused about the language and about how this language is so specific and very, very thin and very precise, because this is what I felt would really do the work in terms of how I needed her to be to make my point, or to take the readers through the journey that I wish to take. So this was me, and now I would really love to hear your questions, your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Tehila. And yes, we have some time for questions or comments. Please, I can bring the microphone over.
The first one is the brave one.
Yeah.
Hi, Tehila. Thank you for your talk. I was really interested in what you said about your experience working with the translators, and I'm just wondering what other meanings you discovered working between French and English and Hebrew, things that surprised you more about your novel,
Yeah.
And about language generally.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Toda, Avi. Well, you know, actually I'm really happy I read only in English and Hebrew, because it's very tiring to read again and again the same book, you know. But, well, there was a very big discussion about it either should be a pickup or a truck, which is not very interesting discussion, right? A lot of back and forth about that, but there were like some parts where we felt like it didn't work. And then there was the question if we should change or just erase. And I'm really an advocate of erasing. I really think that erasing is one of the most important tools in writing, like to let go kind of agenda. But also I feel like translation is an opportunity to get a very much better version of the book, a more precise version of the book. It gives you an opportunity to have a conversation about the book with the person that the book really is under their skin as much as it's under your skin. Because the translator in some way is writing the book in the other language, and not only it's not a transition, right? It's an art for itself, and I can also say that some of the most important clash point in the novel happens when the protagonist and David, they go hunting, and then this protagonist, the main character, because she has this, she comes from references of shooting in the army, so she has this jargon of talking about walking or shooting in terms from the army. So she uses those words or those phrases that doesn't make sense in English, but then because it's inside of a conversation with David, he doesn't understand what she talks about. So in those specific moments, we didn't have to elaborate more because we already had this misunderstanding or even kind of cringe kind of feel from the text that worked for us. Because I don't like it so much when I read a novel that is translated from another language and then there's a term that I don't understand because I'm not from that culture, and then I have this, footnote. Oh, this is how la 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 la. I don't like it in my prose, so I'm happy we didn't have to use it or didn't use it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this talk. And this, as I said before, I have only read excerpts so far from the book, so I admit that right off the bat. But from what I've read, I was struck, it reminded me yet again that I think there are certain things that writing does so well that, say, like film and movies can't quite do, certain subtleties. And I couldn't help but think, including the passage you just read, if it was a movie, it would look like it would come off as kind of badass. Like, oh, look at this woman who knows how to use a gun, And I feel like, but that is not the tone. The tone, it's hard to even, I can't describe it. The tone that you achieve in the book is very subtle. Whereas if it was a movie version, it would come off, it would just be this, this cool woman who knows how to assemble a rifle. I mean, can you imagine this being turned into a film? Do you think, is there something about guns and film that sort of ends up coming off as cheap, and something about writing can hit at something that say movies can't?
Yeah, it is a question because the book was like optioned for television or for film, and actually I got a lot of responses from people in the film industry because they really loved the book. They felt like it's very cinematic because I think when you read it, you really get a kind of atmospheric of what's going on, and it is something that you have in films and also in like good series, if I can think about that, Fargo, or like that. But then when we started like talking about it seriously, they were like, but we'll have to make like a lot of changes because there's not as many dialogues as needed in an actual film, and also a lot of the book is being inside her mind when she's like walking for miles looking for Hunt. It's not interesting, I think, to watch that. But let's see what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to be a movie one day, and let's see what this writer, like this screenwriter, is going to make out of it. I guess it's going to be something different, but I'm open to it. I did some collaboration with other kind of arts, like people, turned my poems into songs, and I also gave them like permission to cut words, to change a bit, and I like this kind of meetups, like to know that my art, that my work can get like another life in different form. I really like that. Yeah. Thank you. Toda.
Hello, how are you doing? It's sort of my personal habit to make sure I pronounce somebody's name correctly. So please pronounce your first name for me.
Tehila.
Tehila. All right, thank you very much. My name's Emil. So there's your presentation about so many different things about not only this particular work, but just, I guess, sort of the marketing and stuff about books that is very intriguing. Yeah, I appreciate that. Very subtle things. If I can, maybe two things. One is, when you were writing this novel, which audience were you thinking of? Israeli audience or American audience or French audience or?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, I guess, because I did write it in the U.S. When I was here, but I write in Hebrew.
Right.
I must say that, when I started writing my poems, the only person that I saw was my mother, when I was writing. And then I really had to remove her from my thoughts because I was like, okay, you can't sit here while I'm writing. So I really try not to think about the audience when I write. I did like spending 3 months in the US in this residency, in this international writing program, really made me like want and believe that my work can be translated. So I did wish it would be translated to English, but I didn't know if that's going to happen because, I don't know if you know, but only 3% of American literature is translated from any language. And then translations from Hebrew is like almost nothing. And then you have like the big ones like Grossman and Amos Oz, rest in peace, and all those big names. So someone like me is not very likely, but then I got like really lucky and I was translated. So I guess I was thinking, if I was thinking about an audience, it was the Israeli, like the Hebrew audience, more than the American one. Yeah, and of course not the French one because, But actually the French were the first to buy like the book to translate it because in French they do like publish lots of translated literature. It's a bit more like old-fashioned kind of literature industry. Yeah.
So, so is your publisher's decision to go try it out in the American market and in the French market?
Yeah, I have an agent in Israel. She's American. She's one of like the oldest in Israel, and so they usually start from the American market, and then they try other like areas. So she sold it to France, to England, to the US, and also to Romania. And it's supposed to come out next year, I hope, yeah.
And then one more, and you can go on to somebody else if you want, but the topic of, it's very amazing, the cover, yeah, because you made, you spent a little time on the difference of the covers, very intriguing, and I've not read your book. So if you'd like to expound on this, what are the elements of each one that sort of you like or don't like, or what is it expressing from your writing?
Yeah, I can go back to that slide. Yeah. Well, I must say, but don't tell this anyone else, like not my publishers, but I think I like the most this one, like the British one, because it has this British humor, and I also think that when you read my books, it does has a very like slight humor inside of it, as well as this book in specific is very political, although it's not in your face. It's much like more undersurface kind of. It's political agenda, if you want to say, although it's not exactly agenda, but it's political view maybe. So I think this is what I like about this one, because it has the humor. This one, I didn't like at first the face of the woman. We changed it. We had like a few versions for it, and also I didn't like the fact that she was cut to half. Although someone told me, I think it was Ilana in Brandeis. She told me, it's okay because you have her mouth. Yeah? It's not like you cut her off and you put only the eyes. You have her mouth. So if Ilana says that, and this one I think is like, it plays well. Well, I think all of them plays well with the titles, which in all of them has the word hunting. But then when you look at the cover, it doesn't have a gun or a gun sight. It has the workspace. So it does the thing that you as a writer want your book to do. Because when you see something like that, it's weird. And then you immediately pick up the book, you flip it, and you start to read what it's about. And this is what book covers are about. Yeah. And it also, it's beautiful. All of them are beautiful. Yeah. But even if, I'll stop here. Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I think it's a good segue into a question that I wanted to ask, and I'm just realizing that the French translation does not include the word America in the title, which is fascinating and very French.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to ask about the issue of work, because you began your talk by reminiscing about your childhood and your background, and about the imperative to work. You must work to succeed. And you emphasize that you come from a family of first and second generation of immigrants. And I just want to linger on that for a second, because I think it's so important. And reading it in the political climate in this country, from the perspective of Americans in 2025, and all of the conversations about immigrants taking away our jobs. And we're going to slap $100,000 fees on H-1 visas for specialized workers. And there's this real sort of fear from all different directions, sort of from every side of the political spectrum, and it all is rooted in that sort of intersection of immigration and immigrants and labor, right? And there have been for many years the question of who's going to do, immigrants come here and do the work that Americans don't want to do, right? And the immigrants who escape poverty and come for opportunity and safety, and that's the gun issue is a whole other sort of element that we can, but I think there's so much to be said there. And I think that the current political discourse in this country, it looks at different types, because there's a hierarchy of labor, right? Labor isn't the same thing for everyone. There are different kinds of immigrants. They come to do different kinds of work, and they threaten in different ways. And I wonder if maybe you can say something about that, because you sort of started talking about that and moved on, and now we're talking about the covers and how pleased you are that they all focus on this dimension of work. And I wonder if maybe we can dig into that, or you can dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So it is really very dangerous times in this perspective, knowing that your job and your life are tied, and both are at risk if you just make a move, I guess, for people that came here for work. They pursued better life. I have actually, I've been thinking about this a lot, about work in general and its place in our life. And, there's this term today, especially in high tech, the work-life balance, right? And I don't think there is really such thing. And as you mentioned, it is exactly that, right? That your life, actually, not only for an immigrant, but your life is dependent completely on your work, on your employer, right? Also, I think for when talking about the hierarchy, right? So people higher in that hierarchy, I think, also suffer from this late capitalist kind of era, and because people in this higher position in the hierarchy, they tend to talk about their jobs in terms of love. I love my job, and I'm really against that, because I don't think that work and love are two terms that got nothing to do with each other. Like, I love my boys, I love vacation. Okay? I do appreciate some of the things in my job. I do love writing, but it's not really the job that pays my rent or my kids' kindergarten, etc., etc. So I could talk about that like for an hour, so I'm not sure if I answered, but I tried to touch it for a bit, yeah.
What were like some other like major cultural differences that you might have experienced coming from Israel to the United States that were either in the book or not in the book?
Yeah, thank you. So I think because the book happens in parallel inside her work and going hunting, so most of the cultural aspects of her life happens within the workplace. So I think the major like different cultural aspects is like the work culture between Israel and the US. And I think it is different, like, and also it's something that I've learned working in American corporates. And I think, so it was my aim to like, to put a finger on that. And in the book, there's like, in the first chapters, there's like this transitions she's going through. We're talking about the smile, right? Like the American smile. And this, you know, there's something about Americans that you people are really nice. You are really like, you have really good manners. And I'm not saying it as I'm saying it as a good thing. And we Israelis are much less. We don't have good manners. When we talk to a person, it's very direct. While Americans will get to the point, but in a bit of a longer way. So I think this is like one of the main differences that I touched on in the novel. But I think it goes also the other way around, because I think as an Israeli, it's easier for me maybe to talk about my emotions and to be emotional, not only with only the closest person to me. And I think in the American work culture, it's a bit different. And maybe also this is the reason why she tried to go through the hunting, like getting to know the culture. Like she felt it was something she was already familiar with. So it's like, it might have been for her like an easier way in. But also maybe like referring back to your question, Karen, I think also the hunting and its rules and its like it's, you know, when a person goes hunt, there's the hunter, there's the instrument, the gun, and there's the hunt. And it's a very, very obvious hierarchy, right? Who hunts who? But also in the workplace, I think, there is a hunt. There's the head hunter. Yeah? This person that looks for the next CEO of blah, blah, blah. But also within the workplace, you can become the hunt, yeah, and be fired like that. So also like putting those two kind of fields separately, at some point they're mixed. Like the workplace becomes the hunting field or the hunting forest, and the other way around too.
So are you saying that you think that there's like the hunt is like the power within the, I guess, corporate America, and coming from a different country, being able to, I guess, get to that point of power, being able to leave and go to somewhere where you said why US, because of like the idea of America, being able to obtain the idea, and now that the characters obtain the idea, it's like starting over and I guess obtaining some other sort of power.
It's interesting. I never thought about it like this. I thought about it more. No, but it's interesting question. It's really interesting. It might be that too. You know, for me, this book was more about being an Israeli, and about Israel, and about what happens to a soul of someone coming from Israel, living through wars, living through the last few decades, and then coming to America, and then looking at America, much more than about America, because for me this book is not about America. It's much more about Israel. And about the workplace, I more thought about it as this person, this protagonist, is outside in the forest. She's the hunter, and the animal is the hunt. But then in the workplace, she might be the hunt. And maybe the corporate, maybe her boss, maybe other people in the workplace are the hunters. Sometimes this was more what I thought, yeah. But it could be also that, because you know America is like the strongest economy in the world, right? Yeah, as you know, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.